Did you know that affluent American gentlemen prefer Slavic women like Melania to some American stereotypes? Milosani, how do you do? So let's go into it. And of course this is rage bait because of course in Eastern Europe there are some stereotypes too of Slavic women who, are not the sort that do marry well, like Sveta, Natasha, Anastasia, and so on. Yet, since American culture is the one that's promoted the most internationally, we'll be using American affluent examples of American gentlemen and what they prefer and what they don't like. And there is one American stereotype that they do enjoy. Again, I'm talking about stereotypes, so it's easier to teach you examples. And of course, there's an exception to every stereotype, which I won't have time to go into individuals, but we'll look at archetypes of ladies that we should not emulate versus ladies we should emulate. Affluent American high-value gentlemen absolutely cannot stand ladies like Marjorie Taylor Greene. And this is regardless whether you're left or right on the political spectrum. So affluent gentlemen tend to be centrist, and those who are far right or far left tend to be broke dusty losers, okay? Notice how Usha Vance or Melania are not one of those pick-me girls wearing MAGA hats, but in fact both started center-left and are highly educated, sophisticated ladies, and not like Marjorie Taylor Greene the pick-me. So I'm talking about conservative American gentlemen, right-wing, the whole right-wing spectrum, right, at the moment. As you know, the Democrat Party in the United States only has 27% popularity, so we'll be talking about their population. So in my social media, I do talk about that it's important to discern the difference between red pill, which is far right and they don't offer ladies anything but brutalism and they split the bill and they want a submissive provider. Then there is the traditional conservative gentleman who provides, protects, commits, and cherish. They're very, very different, okay? And some gentlemen, like executive Jamie Dimon, on the center left, are also good providers, protectors, and so on. But elite tend to be centrist and money tends to move to the center. So Donald Trump in his first term was rather different than in his second term. In fact, in his first term, he cared about the stock market. All he had was mean tweets, but he didn't do mean things. So the second term is markedly different, and the markets are nosediving because of the trade war. There lots of money is leaving the American economy, and the idea was, if they did smart tariffs, for example, on select companies building plants in Mexico, they could bring plants back. But because it's all these random tariff wars, volatility, uncertainty, companies and capital is fleeing the United States to Europe. Executives are calling Donald Trump to ask him to stop his trade war, but he continues. So lots of affluent people are, of course, disappointed in these radical policies that do not make any sense. Donald Trump threatened to invade Canada, Greenland, and destroyed international diplomacy with how he mistreated Zelensky, right? So he did a complete 180 and he did not campaign on these things. And they negatively impact markets and also embarrassed Melania, which is where we're going. So Trump and Vance did this mean girls thing with Zelensky. They did not pay for the hotel room, and then they did this nice nasty. They did all the red pill negs, oh, nice nails, are they real? Nice suit, is it real? And then they attacked his outfit because he was wearing military clothing and so on. Winston Churchill also wore military clothing to the White House when he visited. And Melania was not having Trump's behavior. So, in the State of the Union address, there was a marked difference between Melania Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene. And Melania Trump refused to clap. Everyone in the Republican seating section was clapping for Mr. Trump, and Melania refused it because she felt humiliated, especially, she's Eastern European, and the way Zelensky was treated, regardless of what you think of him, was so improper, because those were red pill Andrew Tate style legs, and then later Andrew Tate was brought in the country, and of course, as a Slavic woman, she was having none of it. Also, Melania clearly says that she is pro-choice. She is not some pick-me. She's smart. She gets everything she wants. Some of you ladies were telling me that she's not a great role model. Well, my ladies are no sheep. We don't copy-paste unless you want the exact same outcome. So, many billionaires are spoiled and feel entitled to cheat, right? That's why it's better not to marry a billionaire. Maybe a multi-millionaire or just a provider will do. Personally, I'm living my dream life. My husband is my dream gentleman, and he's a provider, and he's loving and kind, sweet and faithful. So I have everything I want. I could have married a billionaire, but then most of them feel entitled to cheat, and that's not what I'm into, right? At the same time, I can learn a lot from Melania. The way I describe it is a metaphor as following. I like to play the piano. However, if I see, a free masterclass of a world expert violinist like Pinchas Zuckerman or Perlman, for example, I would love to watch this masterclass, and then I can learn a few things. So those tricks might apply for learning violin. And there are certain things about strings that will not apply to piano. But there'll be certain things on music theory that I can absolutely learn from a violin expert about playing the piano. Melania is an extremely intelligent lady, and she knows the truth that women do not become self-made billionaires except through marriage, right? Mark Zuckerberg, man, right? Jeff Bezos, right? Elon Musk, and so on. We don't see women at the top because becoming a self-made billionaire as a woman is a lie. I used to believe this lie when I was younger, right? And when I started working, I noticed something. So, in the beginning, we were on an equal platform with the boys in school. Then when we started working, that's when there were all these hurdles ladies face that gentlemen don't. Starting with how ladies treat other ladies, right? So when a gentleman is smart, other gentlemen help him get ahead if he's good at his job. They don't feel threatened. They think, okay, if he's going to get ahead of me and I help him, then when he's at the top, he owes me a favor. Whereas when a lady shows even a little bit of competence, how dare she? And all the office politics happens and all the women jump on her. In the office, most women are each other's rivals and tear each other down when gentlemen lift each other up. So you want a mentor, you will probably not pick a woman because most of them will try to tear you down. Especially if there's an age difference, they're jealous of your youth, and you have this whole menopausal monster problem. Then, the next thing, you're looking for a mentor, right? And mentors help mentees go up, right? And most mentors in highly affluent areas so would be gentlemen, right? And they will think that you're coming on to them when you ask for mentorship. You know, in my experience, many of them think that I was interested in them as a woman when I was not. Many of their wives will say no. Very few are so enlightened to understand you're simply asking for mentorship, just like if you were a young lad. So, if they invite you for dinner and you say no to their advances, then they can get upset and block your career path, right? If you simply say no, I really just want mentorship, I don't want anything more. As gentlemen tend to overestimate sexual interest, right? And ladies tend to underestimate. And then if you ask, many wives take it the wrong way too. So if you try to make $1 billion yourself, good luck with that. As a lady, it usually doesn't work out so well because you'll have all the disadvantages. And I went to the top program in politics in Canada, and my male colleagues are now known politicians and highly successful. And also the young gentlemen I worked with when I was younger, they all have successful, flourishing careers. Now, in my school, all the boys who did well in the school, they're flourishing. Whereas all the girls who had good grades, we don't know where they are, right? And all the ladies who did well through marriage, through a boyfriend, through dating up, through some even through sleeping up, and so on. So this is what I've noticed, that in Canadian politics, the majority of ladies who are highly successful, it was either their family, so I know a lady who, it wasn't her husband, but, you know, her family was established, and then she used that to further launch her career. In a certain way, you know, Elon Musk did not come out of nowhere. His family had money, but they were not billionaires. They were millionaires, and he used that as a launching pad to become a billionaire. So there's something of that sort. If your goal is to go to the top and be a billionaire as a lady, the most effective way of doing it is marrying into money. So Melania's goal was to be a billionaire and have that lifestyle, and to start from zero. So the most intelligent way of doing that was marrying up. And for her, that was much more important than love. And she married someone who she doesn't care cheats on her, right? And she always uses the cheating to her advantage. Though I have different goals, I know that I can learn from her to reach my goals. And there's certain things that I won't tolerate, such as cheating, but I also learn that, you know, for things that I do tolerate, I should always make sure that I'm well compensated. And I've never had such a nuisance, but I know in the future. So if you argue with your spouse and there's something wrong, then he repeats it, the next time you should say, I'll accept your apology if you give me gold, right? So you don't repeat your mistake. You promise not to do it again. This is the second time. So in order for me to forgive you, you should give me gold. I've never had apology jewelry from my husband, but he gives me jewelry all the time for joyous occasions. And apology jewelry is an important concept in hypergamy. So why do elite American gentlemen prefer Slavic or Asian ladies? It's because it's the elite of these societies, because those countries are so far off, China, Russia, and so on. Those countries are very far. So, for ladies to go all the way from there to the United States, to Manhattan, well, that is the best of the best. It's the pick of the crop. That's why we're not talking about the negative stereotypes, because, Russian ghetto ladies stay behind in the Russian villages, right? Okay, some of them somehow do make their way to London, I don't know how, and end up in Sexy Fish, but that's another story. They do not go all the way into the United States, into Manhattan. So we're not talking about the Russian ghetto. However, if you're interested in what happens in Russian ghetto, harmful Russian stereotypes, and ladies you shouldn't emulate from Eastern Europe, please comment below. The most important quality of high-value Slavic ladies in New York City, like Melania Trump, is sophistication. And that is what affluent gentlemen go for. It is a sophisticated lady who's a queen and not a pick-me, who doesn't stand by her man and lets him cheat because he can. No, Melania made sure that Donald Trump paid, and she slapped his hand when there were allegations of cheating and said, no, I don't appreciate it. There is such a stark contrast between Melania Trump, on one hand, a queen who gets what she wants and is married to who was initially a billionaire and now is a first lady, versus Pick-me-sha, doormatisha, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is living with her partner, move-in boyfriend, and she is a parking space. By the way, I have explosive video coming soon from inside a Canadian political party, and I was asked if I can make a relationship video because there is a relationship advice component and it just fits with my platform. So that is coming up, and it is a relationship advice video because in one of those campaigns there's some relationship advice hypergamy thing gone rather adrift, and it's also a lesson for you ladies, so this will be coming up this week. So we have Marjorie Taylor Greene being used as a parking spot for her boyfriend, her live-in boyfriend. So she is a free escort, she's a free maid, free chef, half the bills paid, free therapist, you know what? And she's Barbara the Builder, and she's building his journalism career. So when he's done with her, he'll throw her out and find someone else. He is a journalist for some right-wing publication called Newsmax, and he, did something rather unsightly, undiplomatic when interviewing Zelensky. He did a personal attack and a personal nag on his outfit when he's a dignitary, and he was wearing his it's modern military costume. And when Winston Churchill went to the White House, he also was wearing the military costume of the day. And here, it was just so Neanderthal, using those red pill. What do you bring to the table, for me to date you? Nice nails, are they real? Nice boobs, are they real? We're now tired of this nonsense in dating. Also, ladies, if gentlemen who are not Eastern European, who are not Russian, are anti-Ukraine, this is a large red flag. Because, okay, in Russia, that's a normal position, but in America, especially if they're American, they saw someone vulnerable coming from a war zone, and you should be polite and have hospitality and be a gentleman, right? And so if they're cheering, oh, Ukraine screwed us over, therefore we can be rude. He will abuse you when you're pregnant, when you're vulnerable. So just be careful of anti-Ukraine men. If they hate Zelensky, that means they'll take advantage of you when you're vulnerable and they'll abuse you. Now, if they say, what? They're Republican and they believe that America cannot afford to pay for the war in Ukraine. It's unfortunate how Zelensky was treated in the White House. It's not right, it's not proper, and we should follow international protocol and etiquette with guests so that other countries respect us. Being a gentleman is important. At the same time, he believes that maybe the United States should not be funding the war in Ukraine. Then you can date this person, even though he's not pro-Ukraine, he's still pro being a gentleman. See, this is what matters. It's not so much left or right, but does this person support attacking people when they're vulnerable? If so, he'll do this to you, so be careful. Not every conservative out there is a gentleman. And there's a lot of red pill with Andrew Tate flocking to the Republican Party 2.0, right? It was safe to date a Republican in Trump's first term because they weren't doing these red pill things. But now a lot of the initial conservatives like Kushner and Ivanka, they left, and people like Andrew Tate have taken their place. So a lot of the traditional conservatives left and are being replaced by red pill in this administration. So of course there's still traditional conservatives there, but that's why I'm telling my ladies, I know no one wants to hear this, but be careful. Now there are people who attack those who are vulnerable, right? And if they attack those who are vulnerable or cheering those who do, they will do this to you. So be careful now. So Trump did a blame the victim thing with Zelensky. Typical abuser tactic, said, oh, you allowed yourself to be in that position. When in fact, Russia invaded Ukraine. It's laughable. It's like saying that Cuba invaded the United States. Why are you Cubans resisting? You should stop resisting and make peace. This is clear gaslighting and clear abuse. When he told Zelensky, you have no cards without us. It's what do you bring to the table for me to date you? That's what it is, right? And so when gentlemen say, rascals say, what do you bring to the table? You are at the table. So they know full well why on earth they're dating you. This is a neg to try to lower your self-esteem, right? To hardball you to give free kitty. All of those are red pill tactics. Trump saying you're not ready for peace, well, that's gaslighting and manipulation because he's twisting the words. He is not saying peace, he's saying surrender, right? A friend of mine said it was an assault on femininity. They saw someone vulnerable and tried to take advantage. So they gave Ukraine a raw deal that they'll do absolutely nothing and get full access to Ukraine's minerals. And Zelensky said, no, I'll just work with the Europeans, right? And I said, you are ungrateful. Ukraine would have fallen in 2 weeks without American help. This is not true, but this whole ingratitude thing, this is a very common thing abusers do. Whenever a victim, goes for her rights and says, I don't want you to talk to me in this way, or please stop hitting me. They'll say, why are you ungrateful? I give you all this money, you're a kept woman, and you're so ungrateful. You accuse me of yelling at you, and you say I'm abusive when I give you so much money. You should be grateful and accept my yelling and hitting you. It reminded me of how some stay-at-home girlfriends are treated. That he paid, a kept girlfriend, like, I pay all your bills. Why are you so ungrateful that I yell at you? I'm entitled to yell at you and hit you. You should then start working and pay your own bills, right? Or, tolerate me hitting you. Tolerate me yelling at you. You're so ungrateful, I pay all your bills, right? And, of course, because she has been out of the workforce in a while, or she has a baby, right? and she's vulnerable, she cannot return right back, then he's saying you're ungrateful, I pay all your bills, so, you should be okay with me yelling at you and hitting you, right? You're so ungrateful. So just understand, some predators will be a gentleman until you've had their child and are thus vulnerable, and then they will abuse you, call you names, hit you, right? And you'd ask them to stop. And they say, well, I pay your bills. Why are you not grateful? Trump would interrupt Zelensky and said, no, stop. You're not in a position to dictate to us or tell us how we feel. This is very much a Tate tactic, that you put the woman in a lowest subordinate position, right? I pay the bills. You're in no position to tell me what to do in this home. So they devalue what you do. So Trump said, oh, Ukraine is going to lose everything. People are dying. And, if we don't help you, it will be over. And you must do as we say. If it weren't for our weapons, the war would be over in 2 weeks. It's like saying, if it weren't for me paying your bills, you'd be homeless outside. Therefore, you should accept that sometimes I raise my voice and sometimes you do wrong things, so I have to discipline you and hit you when you do the wrong things. And someone who is so charming, and then after you had his child becomes a monster, or after you depend on him long enough that you're not handing out the resume and you're not married, some, gentlemen can hurt you. So they'll devalue your self-reliance, like you're too stupid to find a job. You've been out of the workforce for so long. Who on earth will hire you? Or you're so ugly. Who will date you if you leave me, right? Or you shouldn't break up. You try to break up with me. You're so ugly, no one would date you. So things of that nature. So President Zelensky of Ukraine was being gaslit by Trump and Vance. So President Trump would put his pinky finger and just each time he was telling Vance to attack. And Vance was gaslighting Zelensky about the situation in Ukraine. And, President Zelensky said, it's absolutely not true. That's not the situation on the ground. And Vance was clearly lying. He said, that's not the situation on the ground. Have you been to Ukraine? I could invite you to see things for yourself. And then Vance raised his voice and yelled like a Neanderthal barbarian and said, no, I don't have to. And if you would invite me, you would take me to a propaganda tour, which is obviously a lie, and raising the voice. This is abuse, okay? So, for example, your abuser says, let's say you're 1 minute late bringing groceries, right? And then your abuser comes in and you were an hour late bringing groceries. You are cheating on me. You'll be grounded and you won't be allowed to see anyone because I pay all your bills. I'm going to take your car away. You said, I'm 1 minute late because you asked me to change an order, so I had to go back. And I did this for you. It's like, how dare you? You're not grateful. And you'd say, well, you know what? You can go and check the paper because you asked, and he's gaslighting. You can check the paper. So, if I check the paper, you would have invented a fake one, and the next thing, if you're a lady, he will hit you. He might unalive you. Zelensky showed vulnerability, so they were trying to hardball him, to try to really squeeze him in a negotiation, trying to use every single red pill neg, and gaslighting and manipulation tactic from Andrew Tate's course they could find. They discovered this course and thought, oh, maybe we'll be doing something new and innovative using hardball pickup tactics that work on pygmishas and try them on heads of state. Everyone thought they were ridiculous. the stock market plunged and people thought, you know what? We might not want to do business with the Andrew Tate and his team of pickup artists. What on earth is this? Now you have to understand that Melania is Slavic, okay? She's not Russian and she's Slavic, just like Zelensky. So she looked at it like, oh, this could be done to me. I don't approve. Marjorie Taylor's Greene's live-in boyfriend helped, basically egg this on and, falsely said that the clothing's disrespectful and all of this, and attacked Zelensky because he looked vulnerable and he was copying everyone else attacking because he thought, you know what, that might help his career because, this pick-me is moving him up, maybe he should behave like her. And then you should see the difference in how Melania was treated at the State of the Union. She was the only one there not clapping because after she saw that disastrous performance, she was mortified and hiding in Manhattan. She avoids Washington, D.C. right now and has nothing to do with her husband because, after the assassination attempt, she, Jared, Ivanka ran. Apparently, there's something off. He's not that well. And perhaps has gotten victim mindset and is a much more negative person than the one she met and fell in love with. Or at least fell in love with his money. So before, she was always by his side, and then she started after, this, to distance herself. His first time, of course, she pretended not to be interested and they had to negotiate to bring her from New York to the White House. But then in the White House, she was always with him. This term, it's different. And she felt embarrassed, so she was the only one who wasn't clapping and only smiled when he mentioned her name. So when Melania saw how her Slavic cousin was treated in the White House, she immediately set boundaries to ensure that she would not be treated the way Zelensky was, because she's no pick-me, unlike Marjorie Taylor Greene. That's why she is there, right? So in the past, she has even stated she's pro-choice. Just understand, she is not a pick-me. She's sophisticated and discerning, okay? And that's why affluent gentlemen like Slavic ladies. It's very useful to have someone who's discerning, cultured, with social skills, right? Pick-me's are useless. So when everyone was clapping, Melania was not. And Trump trembled in the State of the Union address when mentioning her name, and mentioned her with all the greatest respect, affection, and care. He was very scared to even make a mistake and only heaped praise upon praise, and she only smiled in a true Slavic way. When he mentioned her, then she smiled. See, Slavic women don't just smile. Slavic women smile when there's something to smile for. So when he praised her and mentioned her name, she smiled. And she gave it instead of a genuine smile because she didn't want to be there. Also, she has been wearing only neutrals, not anything beautiful, wearing pantsuits, so there she wore the most casual looking thing she could wear. It was a dual jacket that looked like a cardigan, so she dressed down on purpose, right? Again, to show, Elon Musk was wearing a suit and tie, just to make a point, right? That she's no pick-me, and she would absolutely not tolerate this behavior from Trump. And if Donald Trump even tried the Zelensky thing with Melania, she would screw him over with such divorce details he could never recover. Melania is very intelligent, so she's quiet. She doesn't yell and anything and write about her whole life on Facebook. No, she's a mystery. And she's quiet, and she sits and thinks and deliberates and calculates. So she thinks, where can she get leverage here, where she can leverage there. There are rumors that she pushed Trump to run for office because then she could have a lot of leverage as a first lady. Even if he didn't win anything, her on the campaign and so on and so forth, and him being public in that way, if he cheats, he could run into far more trouble than if he was an anonymous businessman. So, there are rumors that she did, push him to run for her advantage, but pretended to be, oh my goodness, he won, right? I mean, she had him run to be more public, so as a politician on the Republican ticket, he has to have more family values, and there'd be a bigger price for him cheating, and she would have far more leverage. See, it's smart, right? And they used to be liberals until he ran. So there are rumors that, this was her idea. She didn't expect him to win. So if she cried when he won, if that's true, that might be true. I don't know, but the rumors are that she nudged him to be a public figure, and what we do know is no one expected him to win. But having a cheater husband run on a Republican Party ticket is smart, because that creates or induces a cost to his cheating, and she can extract money and change the prenup, which she did several times. She leveraged the whole situation into changing the prenup in her favor. Got an elite wardrobe, she got so many things, even this book deal. She also organized an event that got money in her bank account. So she did so many things to milk the situation for what it's worth, and she put herself first. And affluent gentlemen absolutely love her for it and respect her for it and say, I want a wife like that. Yes, they want to be held accountable. They want to be screwed over if they cheat. They love that form of intelligence and respect it as an equal. Affluent gentlemen see a lady who takes no rubbish behavior as wife material, okay? So, if you notice in the State of the Union address, what happened was MTG, where Marjorie, whatever her name is, she had this hair. Her hair was dyed as bright blonde as possible. It's not elegant, it's the cheapest, this is what I call cheap escort blonde, right? When you just go in and bleach it yourself with no tone, nothing, and fry it in the lightest platinum blonde. It looks unhealthy that the hair might fall off, right? Whereas elite ladies will have a beige when they have very light blonde hair, and it's not their natural hair. You will see multiple tones at least, trying to look natural-ish, but not, that the hair is healthy from a stylist, that it has multiple tones in it. So that it wasn't like bleach job, but it was done properly, gradually, and so on. But basically, MTG fried her hair the lightest platinum blonde in desperation for attention. And then she had makeup that didn't suit her, tried desperately to highlight her eyes. You see, if this makeup on me, if you put it on a blonde, she would look like an escort because it doesn't suit her, right? Because when you have a blonde, you are supposed to use brown pencil, right? If you're going to highlight the eyes and so on, right, you should use brown liner, like dark brown. You have to use something that matches the skin tone instead of something really harsh that's meant for a brunette. On a blonde, it would look garish. So she had, please pick me, cheap wannabe escort, but actually cheap pick me makeup, right? Because escorts at least will go on TikTok, take a makeup class to make more money. They don't want to be obvious. Escorts actually do often have much more. Yes, they have more flattering makeup and clothes than your desperate pick-me. In this beautiful event where ladies wore designer suits, MTG wore bright American colors and a trucker hat that didn't flatter her, that said Trump is right about everything, that he made those. No intelligent woman would put that on her head, okay? No one is right about everything. You have to be extremely desperate. It's like putting idiot on your head. No one is right about anything. So when a person puts a hat that somebody's right about everything, puts it on their head, it screams idiot. If she had half a brain but was a pick-me, then she would have simply MAGA on her hat. Make America Great Again, right? You know, she was just so desperate to wear the brightest colors, to have the brightest platinum blonde hair, and she stood out and she was screaming, trying to get his attention. Trump was... and until he finally got to her. And he was like... pat on the back. Oh my God. I should thank my supporters. Long day at work. She was trying. Look at me. My name is Look at Misha. Please look at me. I'm Look at Misha. Pick Misha. Look at me. Pick me. Look at me. Look. I'm so desperate for attention. Right. She looked like a fire siren, with an ambulance and a police car and a fire truck of attention all at once. Honk, like the whole thing, right? And, you could just see that she was in the corner of Mr. Trump's eye. He was like, oh no. And he was treating like a queen the one lady, the one person in the Republican Party who's not even clapping for him. That says something, that pick-me's get nowhere and queens get everywhere. So this video started, there was a conversation I had with an American pick-me who is still a doormat in spite of watching my videos. I don't know what else I can do. Maybe I could do a series of how not to be a doormat and a loser, right? I don't know, I just see so many pick-me's in the United States, particularly as a country. And maybe we can look at pick-me's, unpack it, teach ladies not to do this. It's not going to get you anywhere. And so this doormat, was trying to teach elite discernment. And I'm talking about right-wing ladies so far in this video. We haven't even gotten to Meghan Markle. So I'm talking about, in the right-wing conservative, elite conservative gentlemen, they will often marry a sophisticated liberal, but not far-left, center-left lady. They will not marry a social justice warrior, vegan, or so on, but they will marry a cultured center-left lady over some stupid right-wing pick-me who agrees with everything they say. Elite gentlemen do not marry ladies who agree with everything they say, because that's dangerous to them. What's the point? See, a middle-class worker, he's challenged so much by the world. He doesn't want to be challenged at home, Let's say he works at McDonald's, so in lower class then probably. But even, someone at the bottom of the office, this assistant who everyone walks all over him in the office because he's nobody, right? And they always challenge him in the office and pick on him. When he comes home and splits the bills with his wife, he really hopes that she doesn't challenge him, right? So a lot of this lower class pick me stuff, which is important to lower class men, lower class ladies assume elite gentlemen are like that. Not at all. It's very difficult to be an elite gentleman, and there is an excellent series called The Magnificent Century, Hurrem Sultan, about Sultan Suleiman, who has a harem, and how this former slave girl, whose family was unalived in front of her and she was captured, and how she turned what was initially a dark fate into ruling the Ottoman Empire. She's really smart, and I do recommend that series for leveling up. It's so important to have strategy. So yes, when a gentleman is very high up, he cannot necessarily trust his male advisors. And this series is based on history, and the real Hurrem Sultan, her biggest rival was not a woman in the harem, but one of the Sultan's advisors, Ibrahim. And Ibrahim had actually bad intentions because he got corrupted. And he didn't have the best intentions anymore to the Sultan, Ibrahim Bargali. So the Sultan and Ibrahim were best friends, but then eventually he got spoiled and corrupt, and Hurrem, or Roxolana, saw through this, and he wanted to destroy her rather than admit he abused his friend's trust. In the end, she figures it out and figures out how to unalive him. She gets him unalived. So when a gentleman is an important CEO or king, and he's responsible for hundreds of people putting food on their table, right? When someone is responsible for the lives of others, there are other people who want to take his place, and they play power games. High-value gentlemen need intelligent, sophisticated, yet well-mannered and pleasant, geisha-like ladies as a sounding board and as an advisor, so that other gentlemen will not take them over and take their stuff. If you notice, now the lady in the harem of Elon Musk, who's always with him, she's very intelligent, and she headed Neuralink, and she was a center-left leaning Canadian. The social justice warrior, crazy girl, he kicked out. But he took the very intelligent, sophisticated lady who could help calm him down and advise him. Another story. Well, this is allegedly, right? And for entertainment purposes only. But there is a princess in Dubai, the main princess, right? And her father was the advisor to the father of the king, and she was educated in how to rule. She was educated in the art of governance and politics, so that she would be the main advisor to the Emir of Dubai, okay? Because you don't know who's trying to use you among men. The only way you can trust an advisor at that level is if she had your children. So the Emir of Dubai, of course, wants Dubai to be the greatest city in the world. And at one point he wanted to show that it's equal to London. So he married another wife. In Islam you can have 4 wives. So he married Princess Haya from the Jordanian royal family and courted her. And then he appeared with her at the Ascot and at British events. And she's very much a Jordanian Princess Catherine or a Jordanian Kate Middleton. And they appeared as a quintessentially British couple at the Ascot and royal events in the press. So they created an image that the Emirati monarchy is equivalent to the British monarchy, and that was the media relations strategy. at the same time, the princess of Dubai, the first one, was not impressed at all. Being left out like this, she was so upset, right? And so she had an idea. So again, I don't know what really happened and the facts, but she just let a very handsome bodyguard guard Princess higher. And meanwhile, I don't know if it's coincidence, but very often the once romantic husband of Princess Haya had this business, and that allegedly this is how it went. I'm not, I don't want to commit it to paper, but those ladies are smart, okay? So he had work here, all of a sudden, and work there, and for a special occasion. I mean, the rumors are that, there was a special occasion, and then, there was this work thing, he needs this, and she'd always advise him. And if there was an opportunity to have her travel abroad alone with the handsome bodyguard, right? Allegedly, the queen, would let this happen. So, over time, the beautiful young girl had an affair, and of course, the first wife knew of it, and you cannot disrespect the first wife in Islam. You just don't do that or you land in trouble, which is exactly what happened. And then, the first one didn't know she was set up, right? Just the queen waited for this silly little princess to fall. And she had a stupid affair, got caught, her lover got unalived in some accident, and then she had to have this very rather nasty public divorce and was gone and out of the Emirates. Meanwhile, the king had achieved an image where Britain was equal to the Emirates, where London was equal to Dubai. The Emir, ruler of Dubai, is completely innocent on this. He just thought, wouldn't this be a great media relations strategy to improve the profile of Dubai? And his first wife was not amused and made sure she was still the queen, and you don't mess around with her. I admire her, the first lady of Dubai, so much for her intelligence. And these are the ladies who marry into money and keep the money, not the pick-me's like MTG. You like blue? I like blue. You like hats? I like hats. You like trucks? I like trucks. You like pink? I like pink. So don't be like that. Pick-me's often, sadly, do get unalived in elite circles. They get brutally mistreated, brutally abused. Just know it's dangerous for you out there. Do not be a nice girl. If a path to leveling up into the elite becomes too well known, it either becomes sabotaged or the elite move on to something else. So with all the different level up YouTube videos out there, many ladies discovered a level up hack, that you don't have to split the bill 50-50 if you find a conservative gentleman, right? So it used to be as simple as, let's look for someone who votes Republican. But looking for someone who votes Republican was a hack found by too many ladies. So that had to get sabotaged. So of course, Andrew Tate had to get mixed into MAGA. And some level down stuff had to be mixed to confuse ladies, right? Because I am sure that the people at the top, the billionaires, the 1%, the people at the back, right? The shadowy elite, they don't want too many people challenging their daughters before they had the luxury belief with they would talk a left-wing game but live a right-wing conservative life. And enough people fell for that. But then so many ladies on TikTok and YouTube were like, that's not how it works. In fact, to level up, you have to act in a more socially conservative manner, even though your banter might be progressive, right? So affluent progressive people at the end might, act progressive in university, but then they live in a socially conservative way that contradicts what they're saying, which is known as a luxury belief. So now a professor, but then a Cambridge doctoral student, wrote a thesis that elite preach the swinging 70s but live 1950s, right? And enough ladies figured this out, and there were enough level up TikToks, there were also videos including Anna Bay's, mine, many others, and ladies figured this out. Enough ladies did. So, of course, they had to sabotage you, and they had to mix some red pill in there, so that, you would say MAGA to everything, and actual affluent gentlemen would look at you like, ugh. And they're conservative, they're Republican, they vote Republican, but they're thinking, why not would you support tariffs and invasion of Canada? Are you some kind of special stupid? Didn't the Smoot and Hitler tariffs, cause the stock market crash and the Great Depression in the 1930s? The climate changed, right? So many ladies are wondering, oh my goodness, did Maria become crazy? No. I wish. Rather, that too many of you figured out this level up hack. So, the elite, right, especially the old money, they had to figure out a way to sabotage you, right? Have you noticed all of a sudden Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, who were protesting Trump before he won, now all of them are acting like they're his best friend and support free Republican speech and all this stuff, right? So all of a sudden the billionaires who used to be fighting Trump are pretending to be his best friend, right? So with that goes without saying, some elite are pushing Andrew Tate and this assault felon, or soon to be felon, accused of assaulting a lady so bad that her tampon had to be surgically removed, this McGregor, okay? So he was in the White House with Trump. Why is that? Well, that is so that, they have this red pill thing going on, right? And the way President Trump spoke with Zelensky, this is a red pill tactic. So this is being pushed. And what I've seen as a repeat pattern is elites will do this deliberately so that ladies get confused, and then you will go and think this abuser is a conservative man who provides, protects, and commits, when it's not the case. See, coaches who know what they're talking about update their game. Whereas all the coaches who, pretend, they're sitting there, oh, vote MAGA, anyone MAGA is a high-value gentleman. Not the case anymore, right? When you had Andrew Tate brought in from, Romania into Florida, and then you saw an actual high-quality conservative, that's DeSantis. He then went after Tate and started prosecuting him because he has convictions of sexual assault, and DeSantis believes in law and order and has kept Florida very orderly and well governed, okay? So people like Ben Shapiro, Dr. Jordan Peterson, DeSantis, you see, they have a happy marriage. Look at those conservatives, right? Who don't cheat on their wives, who have a happy marriage. Those are the traditional ones you look for. And this is being mixed in with red pill. So red pill, they hate women, they see themselves as victims of ladies, like what losers. So they're broke, dusty losers like Kevin Samuels, okay? And they want ladies to split the bill 50-50, and they're looking for a dumb, submissive provider. And yeah, and you get nothing out of it. And the stupid women who have zero standards or self-esteem, who end up marrying these red pill, very often get beaten. So there was this Richard Spencer, and there was this Russian Anastasia type, pick-me, who was chasing him. She married him and he beat her up. She ended up in the hospital and got divorced. So these red pill type, they want you to do 50-50. They resent you no matter what. What do you bring to the table? They think they're a victim of women, which therefore entitles them to abuse you, and therefore they want to use you for the maximum and give the minimum, and there's absolutely nothing in it for you to date them, and they hardball you on a date. Instead of being a gentleman, caring for your vulnerability, they say, what do you bring to the table? Nice boobs, are they real? And so on. Red pill try to break down your self-esteem so that they get free kitty. Ladies so discern family-oriented gentlemen like Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, from these pickup artists like Andrew Tate, who have a harem, who are mean, cruel, brutalist pimps. Did Kevin Samuels have a wife? No. So you have to, look at the difference between those who listen to a gentleman who's happily married with a wife, like Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro. Those will then treat you well, because Jordan Peterson went and spoke to Fresh and Fit, right? And said, no, you don't treat ladies like that. You have to be a gentleman. So, but then those boys who listen to Fresh and Fit, Fresh and Fit are not happily married, so those boys will not be kind to you. They're like, oh, what do you bring to the table? Blah, 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 right? So you look at those who listen to traditional role models who have a traditional family. So on a date, say, oh, I like to listen to podcasts. So what do you listen to, right? Ask him. I heard gentlemen listen to podcasts. What ones do you like? And find out. And then Google, right? Who's he listening to, right? Does the person he listened to, even though you might disagree with their point of view, have a happy family? So if he's listened to Ben Shapiro, and let's say you're Palestinian, you completely disagree with Ben Shapiro, but you say, okay, he's happily married, doesn't cheat on his wife. This person is dateable. Or let's say he's left-wing, and he listens to someone who's happily married, and treats his wife well. Then you're like, okay, if this is what you connect with, then I would be treated well too. If he's listening to a gang of stray dogs like Andrew Tate, Elon Musk, Kevin Samuels, who have baby mamas here, then everywhere, he's not going to be kind to you. Run. Money likes the center, and people at the extremes tend to be broke. So now you understand the importance of sophistication and discernment. So also don't forget to avoid libertarians, because those gentlemen I did a post recently, they say marriage is a piece of paper, but money is a piece of paper that they chase every day, so, right? And then when they find their dream girl, all of a sudden they're either conservative or Democrat, so don't believe libertarian gentlemen. But discernment is what keeps you elite, right? So Before there was this little path like, oh, you know what? If you act socially conservative, right? Dress more conservative, you could fit right in, right? And you could see the game and just, instead of talking about their luxury beliefs, ignore the social justice crowd that won't accept you, and instead talk about something feminine like, your art history. Maybe art history is not necessarily feminine, it's masculine as well, but talk about art history or something feminine like, oh, I do ikebana, and actually I do. My hobby is flower arrangements, so you could say, I like to do flower arrangements, or you do cake decorating, right? So ladies already knew, here is a shortcut, and now you have to know some additional things, right? That suddenly just someone who is right-wing does not mean that he's a provider protector. In fact, he can be dangerous to you. So I hope I helped you with the distinction, that you see who he follows. So some dumb American pygmisha, I was trying to explain the difference between those red pill Kevin Samuels who want a submissive provider who splits the bills 50-50 and why that's utterly useless, versus a Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson type, which is what you're looking for. If you want someone who takes care of you like a princess and gives you princess treatment, right? And it could even be a centrist Democrat, like the way CEO Jamie Dimon treats his wife, right? So there are people like who are centrist, who are the provider protector type. I was trying to have this conversation, and the speaker Misha said, oh, but you Canadians are liberal. And I said, I'm Arab Canadian, okay? Where I grew up, being a virgin until marriage was the norm. In your country, it's the exception. Let's not start there, okay? Because she just watched a lot of my videos and just did not understand that no one likes pygmishas. And, she had this conversation, what about the Palm Beach ladies? Half of Palm Beach votes Democrat, okay? And they are centrist, Basically, they don't mind Trump, but they do mind the tariffs, right? So, they do mind how Zelensky was rudely treated because, of course, yes, that affects the stock market and certain things. See, that's sophistication, that's discernment. Not saying, I love this person right or wrong. You could say, I support that side if you're a Trump supporter. However, when it comes to money, we have these issues. Or if you, let's say you're a Democrat, you're not going to be the crazy social justice type, like Meghan Markle was. Recently, she's showing that she's more of a trad wife, which is more mainstream. We'll see how that's going. The jury's out. She's still neglected and cut off her father. So until she makes up her father, I'm suspicious that this just might be a PR image makeover. We'll see. But I'll give her credit where credit is due. However, I'm going to talk about her regarding her past. Elite gentlemen love Amal Clooney and Melania Trump and see both as high-value ladies, though one is married right-wing and one is married left-wing. But they see both as sophisticated elite ladies that they would be lucky to have as a spouse. Both of these ladies respect themselves, unlike MTG, and put themselves first and their children first, and then the gentlemen, and they don't tolerate disrespect. But they also have great etiquette and respect others, and they have social intelligence and social sophistication, right? So they communicate with others respectfully, and they respect themselves, thus making themselves queens. The problem with Meghan Markle is that she didn't know how to conduct herself in a respectful manner in which elite high-value ladies are expected to do. So I can do an entire video if you're interested in her social errors. She did one after the other, trying to impose her style on the royal family because, again, she's a pygmy who married the black sheep of the family and listened to him when she was offered someone to help her. And the queen offered a countess or someone within the royal family to help her navigate. She said, no, I will listen to my husband, and also how that worked out. Airing the dirty laundry of the family on national television. If she married a Kennedy, she wouldn't be alive. Look what happened to Marilyn Monroe. So there's some rules of protocol and etiquette when you're in public as a member of the royal family, because they're paid by taxpayers and they are heads of state and they set some precedents. So, for example, you don't wear black nail polish, right? They have very light nude colors, and already when Lady Diana wore red, that was seen as a bit rebellious, but that was the craziest color allowed in the royal family, right? And she wore it a lot after the divorce. But in public events, when you're the monarch, your nails are not supposed to be things that will be written about in the papers, okay? You're not promoting nail polish. You're promoting the British industry of textile, the fashion and garment industry. You're promoting your charity, for example, the event, but you're not promoting your nails, okay? Because, you're promoting your country. And there is a reason for this protocol and etiquette, and Meghan Markle had contempt for it. She would wear red nail polish. There was so many things, like with her wedding dress, she was always fussing around, the girls, they did not have stockings, she didn't want the ladies, all sorts of things, and she was always breaking protocol. And she didn't want her as a fiancée. Princess Catherine wasn't even invited as a fiancée. So she was invited, and then she didn't want him to go to the hunt because she believed in veganism at the time, and now she changed her mind. But there was certain things she didn't, she was rude about some omelette, she was like, oh, this is not really vegan, send it back to the kitchen. And the queen said, we don't treat staff in that way. So there were so many things because of social justice. Meghan Markle felt that it was okay to be rude, right? Affluent gentlemen, unless they're the black sheep of the family rebelling, don't want to marry a social justice warrior who feels because there are victims out in the world that she has a right to be rude to others. Also, if you're non-Hindu vegan and scream about people wearing fur or this or that, unless you're from an old money family yourself and have connections, you're not getting married in those circles. Elite gentlemen love Amal Clooney and Melania Trump and see both as high-value ladies, though one is married right-wing and one is married left-wing. But they see both as sophisticated elite ladies that they would be lucky to have as a spouse. Both of these ladies respect themselves, unlike MTG, and put themselves first and their children first, and then the gentleman, and they don't tolerate disrespect. But they also have great etiquette and respect others. And they have social intelligence and social sophistication, right? So they communicate with others respectfully and they respect themselves, thus making themselves queens. The problem with Meghan Markle is that she didn't know how to conduct herself in a respectful manner in which elite high-value ladies are expected to do. So I can do an entire video if you're interested in her social errors. She did one after the other, trying to impose her style on the royal family because, again, she's a pygmy who married the black sheep of the family and listened to him when she was offered someone to help her. And the queen offered a countess or someone within the royal family to help her navigate. She said, no, I will listen to my husband, and also how that worked out. Airing the dirty laundry of the family on national television. If she married a Kennedy, she wouldn't be alive. Look what happened to Marilyn Monroe. So there's some rules of protocol and etiquette when you're in public as a member of the royal family because they're paid by taxpayers and they are heads of state and they set some precedents. So, for example, you don't wear black nail polish, right? They have very light nude colors, and already when Lady Diana wore red, that was seen as a bit rebellious, but that was the craziest color allowed in the royal family, right? And she wore it a lot after the divorce. But in public events, when you're the monarch, your nails are not supposed to be things that will be written about in the papers, okay? You're not promoting nail polish. You're promoting the British industry of textile, the fashion and garment industry. You're promoting your charity, for example, the event, but you're not promoting your nails, okay? Because, you're promoting your country. And there is a reason for this protocol and etiquette, and Meghan Markle had contempt for it. She would wear red nail polish. There was so many things, like with her wedding dress, she was always fussing around, the girls, they did not have stockings, she didn't want the ladies, all sorts of things, and she was always breaking protocol. And she didn't want her as a fiancée. Princess Catherine wasn't even invited as a fiancée. So she was invited, and then she didn't want him to go to the hunt because she believed in veganism at the time, and now she changed her mind. But there was certain things she didn't, she was rude about some omelette, she was like, oh, this is not really vegan, send it back to the kitchen. And the queen said, we don't treat staff in that way. So there were so many things because of social justice. Meghan Markle felt that it was okay to be rude, right? Affluent gentlemen, unless they're the black sheep of the family rebelling, don't want to marry a social justice warrior who feels because they're victims out in the world that she has a right to be rude to others. Also, if you're non-Hindu vegan and scream about people wearing fur or this or that, unless you're from an old money family yourself and have connections, you're not getting married in those circles.